From the moment that we're born, we are basically taught to conform. We are categorized by gender and race. We are sorted by socioeconomic status, and our fate is already sealed from before we even take our first breath. This life is based mostly on luck and fate, and if you are unable to conform to the system, if you are unable to compromise your soul to fit into this capitalistic hellscape, then you will be severely punished. Refusing to conform in school will turn everyone against you. It will make you a target. But imagine that conforming to this level of oppression is not normal, but everyone sees it as normal. Imagine it's almost like the slaves defending the master. It's almost like the crabs in the bucket. They're screwing themselves over by not letting one person out. And unfortunately, we are groomed to be employees for rich people's businesses. It's a factory. School is a factory for low-wage employees. School is just a conveyor belt for employees. That's what it is. And if you're not very good at being an employee, then you're discarded. You're nothing. And not all of us are able to work this insane schedule under these kinds of conditions. It's impossible for a lot of us. And how can you not be depressed in the system, yet we are stigmatized for not being able to take it? We are blamed for not being able to conform, punished for not bleeding our lives into the life force into capitalism. I don't know how to sacrifice myself in a way where I'm useful in this system. I've tried everything that I can to succeed in this system, and I can't do it. So that does make me a failure. I guess at least in the eyes of society, I have not succeeded in any capacity, and it hurts. From a very early age, we're pitted against our classmates and blamed when we can't compete, and we're told not to be so hard on ourselves when our entire environment convinces us to do so. I can't tell you how many times I've been told not to be so hard on myself while receiving absolutely no positive feedback from my environment whatsoever. They want us to be very convenient and not take up space and not have feelings and not be human beings. We are hated for appearances. We're hated for being too ugly or too pretty, or ignored for being average. And the average person who has to do everything right, who does everything right, cannot survive in this society. The average wage, the median wage in this society is actually below what the average living wage is to be middle class. It's impossible to be middle class. There is no middle class anymore. There is no incentive to work in this system. It's pointless. I don't see why I would want to slave my life away for just having a roof. It is so much easier to just live under someone else's roof, or even probably just run into the woods and live there if I have to. If you are neurodivergent coded, society cannot use you. And because you're useless to society, they convince you that you are useless completely. So they push you to the margins and leave you there to rot. They basically make it so that your only option is to stay behind closed doors, and they blame you for not being able to change yourself. It's insane how working your life away is seen as a virtue, when you get nothing to show for it. Then we are shamed for wanting and expecting more. Hard work is a poverty indicator. If you're slaving your life away and you're working hard and you think this is a virtue, you're wrong. Rich people do not work this hard. It's ridiculous. We are then shamed for wanting and expecting more, and called selfish and greedy for wanting a life that's just manageable. It shouldn't be this hard just to survive with it's impossible. I don't understand how we're supposed to do it. There is nothing I can do for 8 hours a day, including playing video games, yet our only life is meant to be thrown away doing work that is pointless. Certain cultures thrust reproduction on you as an obligation, and we are one of the first generations to have easy access to contraception. If our grandmothers had had this as a choice, so many of us wouldn't exist, and the world would be better off for it. This is a slave system disguised as democracy, marketed as democracy. It is basically gilded shit. It is dog shit with gold on top. That is all it is. There is no such thing as freedom in this system. Not for me, not for you, not for anyone that doesn't conform or fit in. And we have to pay the system to cure the damage and illness that the system caused in the first place. I have been told so many times that my only purpose as a woman is to be a breeder. I'm not nurturing. I don't want to have kids. I have basically been told I have no purpose by society. And whether or not this is true, it still hurts. I have felt useless pretty much my entire life. I tried to do what I was supposed to do, and it did not work. And basically I was shuffled through the psychiatry system at that point because they thought I was broken and they wanted to fix me so that I would be able to perform in society again. So psychiatry has a level of arrogance that is unfitting for how primitive mental health care actually is. The patient is seen as less than, or blamed for being not able to cope with a toxic environment. We're expected to take responsibility for a toxic environment and be the bigger person when we're being abused. Mental illness is a natural response to a fucked up system. In the same way that birds will pluck their feathers out of their bodies when they're in a high stress or abusive situation, this is what happens when you are in a suboptimal environment. In suboptimal environments, animals eat their own young, they stop reproducing, and they start plucking and self-harming themselves, because no living being can live in a suboptimal environment without self-destructing from the stress. Therapy only serves to force us back into line and shape us into compliance. It serves to make us functioning under capitalism. All we actually need is true freedom and rest. I've never fit into any rigid system. Unfortunately, I've tried. And I have always had to shoulder the blame and the shame. It's all some sort of sick theater that I was never given the script to. I am expected to perform on a stage play where I don't know my lines. That's what life feels like. It seems like every interaction is this huge calculus problem that I have to solve while everybody else is doing basic math. I have to solve a calculus problem while everyone else, the problem is 2 + 2 for them. For me, it's so complex I can't even do it. So it's not even worth participating, actually. So I don't. We're cut down to nubs until we go down the path chosen for us. Every fake nod and fake smile is just a veneer of compliance. If we are unable to comply, we are discarded like trash and blamed for being awake and noticing that this is fucked up in the first place. When you try to hold on to personal identity, you are the tall poppy that gets cut down. To survive, you must lose your essence to the system. If we actually understand just how rigged and designed for harm the system actually was, most people would stop participating. But the system is very good at disguising itself. There's a game of smoke and mirrors at play that cannot be denied, and most people are not interested in looking that deep. I want to escape the system so badly, but I don't know how. And at this point, living in the woods is probably what I'm probably going to end up doing. I don't really know. We're just spending more time in nature in general because there's really no point in being around people at this point. The ROI on being around humans is so low for me. It's crazy. Especially regular humans. It just doesn't help. There's always something that happens. There's always an issue. So it's better to just opt out. And people say you're copping out for giving up on relationships. Like, it's not their fucking business. You know what I'm saying? It's not their fucking business that I want to opt out of relationships in general. And yes, there are times where I get lonely. But, like, I would rather deal with the loneliness most days than deal with the drama and the fucking bullshit of dealing with human beings. It's just not worth it. I don't have the skills to solve these problems. I don't see it as something that matters. Our actions and performance are where others assign value to us. Being beautiful intelligence makes you valuable by default. As someone that lost my beauty and ability to work temporarily due to disability, it was like entering into a different reality, a completely different world. And because I've told you guys before that I went through chronic illness and basically became absolutely invisible to everyone. The way I was treated was horrible. I was treated like absolute shit by strangers and customer service professionals compared to the way it is now that I'm, back to being conventionally attractive, I guess. And it's really fucked up. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. We care about appearances, and that's how it is. I don't like the way things are. I don't like participating in this life. Having kids forces you deeper into the system unless you are wealthy enough to opt out. Having kids forces you to pretend and requires even more self-sacrifice until there is literally nothing left of you. Some people just don't have a strong sense of self, and I think that's why they have kids. They want to define themselves through other people. They want to define themselves through their own kids or something like that. I really don't understand the mentality that leads people to breed. I know there's a lot of social pressure, but I mean, the village will disappear as soon as the baby is born. And then you're going to be judged for raising the kid wrong. Like, my saving grace is that I've never had a baby, that I never gave into that level of conformity, that I opted out of relationships so hard that I basically aged out of having kids. And if I'm lonely when I'm older, I'm lonely when I'm older, but it won't be anybody else's problem. And there's not going to be an estate battle. There's not going to be any sibling rivalry. There's not going to be any disappointments for my adult kids. I don't have to waste my resources on them. And unfortunately, our brokenness is a response to the corruption of the system, of being cut off at the knees and browbeaten for having minds that are built differently until we learn to turn on ourselves and internalize the external punishment. Eventually, if you've been at this for long enough, the system makes you hate yourself. Unconsciously, you don't know where it comes from, but I think that's where it comes from. I've been basically told to hate my fucking self my whole life. And it's so hard to get out of that. Even when people are giving me information that's opposite, it's been so long and so hard that I've been conditioned this way that it's like drops in a bucket. It's like drops in the ocean, honestly. And it's very hard to counteract it. I don't really know what to do. Having an awareness that differs from the median is practically useless and does more harm than good. If you see things differently, it's not even worth shit. It doesn't matter. It just makes it very difficult for you to function. This is a prison planet, and office professional attire is the societal prison uniform. We are expected to work without curiosity, passion, or asking questions. The less questions you ask, the better, of course. They always say it's a safe place to fail until you actually fail. I want to reunite with the creativity that is my birthright and reignite my curiosity. At some point, it became unsafe to ask questions. At some point, it became unsafe to fail. I want to ask why as freely as a child, but my curiosity has been systematically attacked and stunted, and I'm not sure how to return to it. We have to unlearn productivity to become creative again. We have to avoid planning things out from start to finish in order to allow for spontaneity. And arbitrary dates and deadlines are just enough to stifle the creative process in general, because there's nothing like pressure that kills my creative vibe even more. Plans are meant to change. Dogmatic schedules are the enemy of creativity. Focus on the next step, not the final product. Sucking it up and doing it anyway works for going to the gym. I agree that discipline and doing it whether you feel like it or not works when you're working out or doing something that's necessary or good for your health, like going to the gym or eating healthy. But I've found that this principle does not work for creative skills. You have to create a positive state of mind. You can't punish yourself into doing art. Punishing someone into doing art is actually impossible. Cutting yourself off from your feelings makes it difficult to get into a creative flow. Don't feel bad if you can't push through the pain of illness or stress. We're not supposed to. Only our capitalistic overlords expect us to die from work and work through impossible things. I'm trying to learn systems that work for creativity because traditional corporate productivity strategies have only damaged my relationship with art. Standard productivity tells us not to quit, but it's normal for creative people to have unfinished work, and my love of the process has been damaged by expecting a good result and putting these rigid frameworks around my process. It's okay to let go of traditional productivity strategies if you've tried them for so long and they don't work. And I'm ready to try something else because I've tried traditional productivity strategies for so long and it's actually done more harm than good. Hustle culture is nothing more than a trend that won't stand the test of time. I reached a point of neurodivergent burnout from which I have never fully recovered. I stalled in this dark night of the soul where participation in the system became impossible, and I never gave myself permission to truly take a break and stop trying to work under capitalism. I kept trying to get back into the workforce without being fully healed, and I kept getting fired over and over again. This is me giving myself permission to use this unemployment era of my life, of not having a job and not having responsibilities, as a way to recover, discover, recalibrate, and heal without guilt or pressure. I lost connection with my inner voice and intuition, and I've been trying to live my life according to a one-size-fits-all blueprint, and it nearly killed me. I've literally been on my deathbed from trying to do everything I can to conform to this system that is not meant for me. I have spent too much time trying to be the fish that's trying to climb the tree. But the thing is, I don't know where the water is. I don't know where my environment is that's meant for me. An ecosystem where I can thrive, I really don't know. And part of me is very hesitant because I have so many trust issues. It's difficult for me to put myself out there and try new things. It's difficult to not have a sense of direction, and not knowing how to pay my bills is not fun. It's pretty shitty to be dependent on other people. It's not ideal. They obviously think that they're owed something from me for being able to pay my bills and shit. But perhaps there is a blessing in being unable to do things the traditional way. The thing is, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. When my world fell apart, I never fully recovered. I am frustrated by not having the resources I need to heal, or knowing what the next step to take, or not knowing what the next step is to take to get there. I don't know what to do, and I've really felt lost for quite a while. Traditional modalities of healing have only made things worse. In the right environment, healing and growth just happens. My expectations have been too high and unreachable, causing me to quit and become inconsistent with my work and be very hard on myself. External expectations disconnect us from our soul. What if we just threw caution to the wind and allowed things to unfold on its own? Whatever happens, happens at this point. Wherever I end up is where I end up. Everything is neutral, even if our subjective reactions say otherwise. When you're being screamed at, when you're being threatened, it's all neutral. None of it is personal, but we take things personally because we're human beings, and that's the way we're wired. So many of us were conditioned to be emotionally reactive to our environment, to be fuel for someone else's sick game. And I am an emotional person, so it's difficult for me to remain neutral and not react or feel weak under pressure, but it's basically at a point now where I have failed the test. I have failed what life was supposed to be for me. They gave me a blueprint, they gave me a map, and I was put in the wrong territory. Or maybe I was put in the territory and the map was for the wrong territory. I don't know. Either way, I've been trying to follow instructions that don't apply to me. But unfortunately, I don't have other instructions for anything else, any other way to do this. And that's what I'm trying to figure out through all this, through sharing myself and talking to myself and sharing it online, just to get some sort of external perspective on what I'm going through. Because I want there to be a next step. I want there to be a conclusion. I want there to be a final chapter. But this life is not, it's not really a story, you know? It just is. It just goes on. We position ourselves as the main character in our own story, especially when we're young. But it's not always the case. Most of us are just here because of happenstance anyway. So, if you guys have had trouble conforming to this system, if you can't conform, if you were rejected from the system for one reason or the other, and you find yourself on the margins of society, I guess, let me know in the comments, because, you know, I'm unemployed, I'm living with my mom, I basically gave up hope on everything. Only to realize that perhaps this letting go and giving up was the right move. Maybe by letting go and completely giving up and grieving what I can't achieve, I can actually start on something that's possible. And I'm grateful for you guys that have watched this far, especially. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. My links to support this channel are down below. I have my art on my Shopify down below. You can check out my prints and all the products that I have available. And catch me on live. Follow me on Twitch and Instagram if you're still watching. That's pretty much all we have to say. Follow me on everything. And of course, interact with this post. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.